What is going on, everybody? Happy Saturday. Back to a little bit of nice weather out there. Hopefully, same thing for you, wherever you were at. But thanks for stopping out tonight. Let us know where you're at in the comments. If you're catching this after we're live, make sure you hit that hashtag replay so we know when you're popping in. And again, greatly appreciate everybody stopping out. Before we get rolling here, shout out to Higher Love, the sponsor of our podcast that makes everything here possible. Really appreciate you guys up there in the UP. If you haven't checked them out yet, highly recommend it. There's a reason they're called Higher Love. It's beautiful. Been smoking that lilac diesel a lot lately. Willie's Reserve that I picked up there. So, and I should be heading there tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Again, thanks everyone for swinging out. Appreciate you guys. We had a busy week this week. And had our first experience at a summit or expo. And man, I don't think it could have went much better. Felt really welcomed. Got to be a part of it. Got to say a little speech up there. I was definitely nervous about the speech. They hit me up the night before and asked if I could talk for 15 to 20 minutes. So put a lot into trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about for that duration of time. I was feeling pretty nervous. I was like the second person to talk. And then right before we got up there, they're like, "Oh, did you want to keep it under 5 minutes?" I was like, "Absolutely. That sounds great." So, but no, it was a great event. I'm just going to make sure that the audio is working. If you're here, if you can let me know. Usually have my wife by my side checking things out. Gave her the night off. Might have an echo. Oh, it's working. Cool. All right. I always get nervous when she's not double checking everything. So wanted to share a little bit about the summit with you guys. Got a chance to meet a lot of different business owners. A lot of different people have been influential across the United States as far as legalization goes. You have my interest, says David. What's up, my man? Thanks for swinging by. And no, it was just a really neat experience. That was, again, we were in Baraboo Ho Chunk Casino. Got a chance to speak with a lot of individuals one-on-one, explain kind of what we were doing, and to also share the struggles that other folks are having even across the nation. There was some pretty good representation. California, both start with a C. That's pretty rough, Bob, to make that correlation between the two. California, we had a couple people from South Dakota, New York. I was very impressed by the amount of people that were there. And going through sharing a lot of the same struggles. Even some states that have legalized, the stuff they've been through have been pretty similar to what we're going through. So overall, really glad we were able to be a part of that. And wanted to share a little sit-down interview we got to do. So there's going to be a couple of us interviewing, asking the questions. But I wanted to share this with you guys. Kind of shares a little bit of what we were doing out there. I'm going to go share screen. Get the window ready. Share. All right, looks like that's on there. So I'm going to hit play. Oh, actually, I got to redo it 1 second because it doesn't always do it right. If I don't double click, present plus screen. There we go. It's coming, I promise. Share screen. Window. Nowhere to go. Helps when you don't exit out of it, Bobby Baines. Yeah, putts. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. There she be. That looks better. And now let me click that. It does. Share a tab or screen. All right, here we go. Sure. If it'll pause. All right, we're going to check this out real quick.
A couple things.
One, two,
testing
three.
1, 2.
All right. So we are triple doing it here with 3 outlets, but we are at the ICIA conference, the second annual one. Could you both introduce yourselves for me?
Sure. My name is Rob Perro. I'm the president and founder of the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association.
And my name is Mary Jane Oatman. I'm a member of the Nez Perce tribe from Idaho, and I serve as the executive director of the ICIA.
All right. So other people aren't here. So just tell us a little bit about what's going on here today.
Go for it.
Powerful. The unity in the cannabis community across Wisconsin is palatable here at this conference. To be able to have such a cross section, not only of ages, but the diversity from the counties that are represented here, and I think that we're also realizing that this is not just a Wisconsin conversation. This is open up to a very regional dialogue about how the relationships of the indigenous communities here can move the needle forward with cannabis and kind of start to break down the imaginary state borders.
I can jump in on that real quick. Living in Wisconsin, being that we're a state that I feel has been held hostage by just a lack of awareness from our representatives to move the needle forward to help our communities be better. And we've watched the other states pop. So we're frustrated in Wisconsin. Like, I can just speak to that personally as like a tax-paying citizen. And I think that is what the catalyst is for this event. 2 years in a row in Wisconsin to have a cannabis summit and still waiting, for things to change. And I think what you're seeing, as MJ said, this is a larger conversation that, we have sovereign nations, 574 in our United States, that have sovereignty and the ability to flex that for their own self-determination about what's good for their community. And what we're finding is what's good for their community is building community with our non-native neighbors as well, understanding that this is a collective effort. If we're really going to address the educational issue that's happening in Wisconsin, we have to understand where we're at first before we can figure out how to move forward and get those people who are sort of on the fence with all the stigma off of the fence.
How would you describe where we're at right now? I know a lot of people are waiting for some sensible cannabis legislation to pass, but seems indigenous tribes here are starting to leverage their own sovereignty there, and our previous conversation before, and really hammering down on what they can do themselves instead of waiting.
Yeah, I think we're at a precipice, and there's a breaking point that is going to happen soon. And with the government kind of pushing out a very highly restrictive medicinal bill, it really just opened the door for the tribes to exercise their own outlook on how they could regulate this industry, specifically around medicine. And now it's a runaway, in my opinion. The tribes know now through ICIA that if you're organized, there's power in that. There's also peace of mind of knowing that you're not operating in a vacuum and that you're going to be hung out to dry by taking a stand on your own. And I think that's what we're seeing here as a collective unit with community, all the tribes here from in-state, out-of-state, from different parts of the country are all converging upon here to share their collective experiences, resources, and knowledge to advance this. So I don't think where we're at right now is on a precipice, but we're about to jump off together, holding hands, kind of like Thelma and Louise. But there's something at the bottom that is glorious. We just don't know what that is yet. I guess I want her perspective too, coming from a state like Idaho.
I've really noticed that the conversation, having tribes lead with a word like sovereignty, really opens it up to a universal concept. The COVID pandemic created a reset for a lot of the nation to realize that we have a very short time to live this life here on this earth. And we've done it so overregulated, but this opportunity now for all citizens of this country to reassess personal sovereignty, health sovereignty, and whether or not we wait for permission to save our own lives or those of our family members that we love. We've hit a fork in the road with that conversation post-COVID pandemic, and cannabis has been a big igniter of that conversation because people know we have a lot of personal use stories, and it has impacted people of all color and all walks of life in a negative fashion. And I think that the education campaigns, being able to work together is what's really bringing the conversation forward more expeditiously. When we were having these conversations in silos and not recognizing that it has impacted us all negatively, and we have a shared responsibility to move it forward in a positive way. The ICIA is a small part of that collective voice, but to be able to organize tribes and bring tribes to that table, to not operate out of a place of fear, has been very, very powerful for the ICIA.
Now, you touched a little bit on this, but it's not just Wisconsin that's here. There's a few other states. Idaho yourself, I'm hearing Michigan, California. Yeah, it's a really nationwide issue, and it's definitely coming together here. But what other communities have you seen come out here today?
We have the Flandre Sani Sioux from South Dakota, Native Nations Cannabis. We have our counterparts from the UP in Kiwana Bay. We have, we were supposed to have an Alaskan Native tribe come out, very rural tribe that was looking again for opportunities to, emerging industries. Like there's not a lot of them left. And specifically this one that has been around for so long, I think when there's an opportunity and tribes get together and they're opening the door for, inclusivity, like we want to hear what you have to say. I just love that call to action has been met with such support and passion from our non-native neighbors and our tribal nations outside, because there is this, it's always been a collective effort. You got the fish hatchery, you catch the fish, you share the fish with the community. This is the same way. And right now we're in this data and discovery building phase to really build tactical steps about, how tribes can activate the right way. It's not always going to be, we need to have a dispensary and be growing and do everything. It's supply chain development. It's just feasibility. Sometimes it's just town halls and destigmatizing the plant. But knowing that you're not in it alone is, I think, what you're seeing through this event.
I think what's been most powerful about ICIA being able to convene tribes and organize tribes around such a taboo issue is that we also bring in the balance in tribal communities. Like right now with this whole green rush, reefer madness, trying to figure out, how to untangle that mess, is that the powerful positioning of Indian country around industrial fiber sometimes gets lost in the conversation around THC and hemp-derived cannabinoids. And so it's really important that ICIA has partners like the Lower Sioux Indian community who are not only leading in Indian country, they're leading in the nation with the concept of bio-based building materials and green building materials, with hempcrete, building circular economies, workforce development, and of course the future of science and research around our values around hempcrete. So I think that's one of the, for me, one of the most impactful things about convening tribes is the knowledge transfer from one tribe to the next. And that was just really what was missing in this scary arena of hemp and cannabis, was just a safe space to come together and have community conversation.
Question for you guys. And thankfully there are some places that are doing the hemp alternative cannabinoids, right? Correct, as yourself, because it's a tough market with no regulations. But do you feel that when cannabis is legalized fully, do you feel that could positively affect the public health and safety in our communities?
I do. There's obviously, there can be tripwires,
Sure.
through that process, and not everything will be perfect. And, I think overall, I think the data has proven to be that. Like if you look at the states where they have legalized, and you look at, DUIs, and you look at opioids, and you look at all these different chronic illnesses that, people are now having, acute care for where they didn't before. I think you're seeing that over time. It's tough to quantify it and go, it's going to fix everything right away. But we do know, like, from a tax purpose, from a revenue purpose, from a workforce development, from an economic instigator, from like not paying for the roads in other states, like we drive on them, doesn't mean we need to pay for them. So there's some common sense that I think has to come into play in this scenario. But overall, the data's there. Like it makes sense.
I think it would open the door for a lot of folks that are maybe still concerned about the legality of it currently, but also just help clean up some of the sales that are not legit. and hopefully get that good medicine to the people that it's,
Yeah, I
you don't have
mean,
to wonder what you're buying sometimes.
well, black market is still very active in Minnesota. And Minnesota's a legal state, so you're always going to have a black market. But if you can provide context as to why this is an adult choice and there's public safety that's top of mind in this industry, I think the paradigm shifts. So then you don't want to buy it from your buddy who got it from a buddy because it's a good deal. You want it because it's medicine and it's helping you, or you want it because this is an adult choice, but you also want to know that the beer you made was made with proper GMP manufacturing, right? So same, we just want the same.
I think the public health and safety message is something that the tribes are really uniquely positioned to be able to lead as well, because it goes hand in hand with the issues of taxation. And sometimes the conversation, while it may lead with public health and safety, for some reason, it always takes a dovetail over who's going to make money off of the taxation of the plant medicine itself. And what that does is it impacts patient affordability. And that's really where we see tribes being, again, positioned to be able to create not only safe access and quality access, but affordable access. And I think that that's really important as states move forward towards legalization, is high taxes create a new barrier and obstacle of themselves.
Yeah, one concern, and just to put a cherry on that maybe, is when you're seeing states move so quickly and they're just like, hey, we're just going to go and we're going to go all the way. There's a lot that gets lost in the medicinal acute, like who needs that medicine, and are we still carving out the proper care and expertise for those individuals that need it the most? And that unfortunately is getting lost, in some of these states where they're moving so quickly. And now you're having someone that is, maybe the older generation that's coming into this dispensary with all these flat screens and all these terpenes and all these, fast talking bud tenders, and they're not comfortable. So I think there has to be a refocus in the indigenous community around how we put a focus on taking care of the people that need this medicine the most. So that acute medical priority needs to be shifted. I think that's something that Wisconsin could do better than other states.
And then what do you think tribal leaders and tribal citizens should know about cannabis as an economic development tool?
Go ahead.
I think that it's really important for tribes to understand that, under self-determination, we set the stage for what this looks like in our communities. And not all communities have embraced cannabis, but all communities should embrace cannabis regulatory structures. An example of that is in California. We have a guest here from the Trinidad Rancheria, and a lot of the Humboldt County tribes actually have bans against cannabis because they have been on the brunt end of the depredations against Mother Earth and the water systems, and it's impacting their salmon recovery because of the herbicides and pesticides that are being applied. So it's taken a minute to get those tribes to realize that they can actually embrace cannabis regulatory structures to ban known harmful and pesticides and herbicides, and flex their protections under the EPA and Tribes as States Act. And there's just really opportunities for tribes, whether or not they are progressive on cannabis as an economic development tool, or trying to figure out how they utilize their law and order code structures to be able to protect their community.
Yeah, I would just add that, what do we want them to know about this as an economic opportunity, is that there are options for that. It's not like a one size fits all where you have to be vertically integrated, or you need to do industrial hemp and you need to do it for, fiber. You could be a lab, you could be a transporter, you could be just a tribe that specializes in hempcrete, and really, like, that's a Minnesota tribe that really hasn't gone down that route yet. But what we want the tribes to know is that ICIA is a resource for that. What are our options? We want to explore, we want to discover, we want A, B, or C. We're at the 10th level already. But knowing that there is a body entity out there that is doing this work collectively and with partners in really good places that we've kind of created our own table, we want them to know that.
And then since last year's summit, what's changed in the indigenous cannabis industry and ICIA over the past year?
Got a lot more members. We got a lot more confidence. it's amazing what happens when people step up and they start, talking the same language and standing shoulder to shoulder with you. It really makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. And that's what we feel, in our third year now as ICA, that we're doing the right thing. It's not perfect, every stride that we take, but this is not a perfect science, and what we want to do is create something, that is malleable. And I think I said this in the video, that we know this, it's not just me and MJ that are running this thing. This is a group effort. This is an organized effort. And we want people to be able to help mold this into something that we know will be able to evolve with the industry as well. So that is critically important to us. And that's what I'm seeing as a massive change. There's more people here than ever. There's more intent than ever. And there's more support than ever.
Just gonna jump in real quick. We gotta.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
One more, or we gotta go?
We
can go.
We'll go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Call it. Sounds good.
Not that I don't want to keep talking to y'all.
Whew, thank God I remembered I was muted there. Not at the usual setup, so had to here, get the screen off here too. That's gotta be annoying. Sorry about that. Again, that was Mary Jane and Rob, two of the folks that got a lot of time and effort into making things happen for this summit, and brought some really unique information as far as the struggles that it's not just us. This is going to be a tough fight, and we're going to have to work together with others. And looking forward to doing that. Again, it comes down to getting the medicine into the hands of the people. We had a comment here. What do we got here? Alleviate Wellness. What's up, guys? We're already selling high THC cannabis all across Wisconsin. Heck, our D9 are far stronger than they can sell in many legal states. That is true. The one issue, again, that we run into is there still seems to be a lack of knowing where these products are actually coming from as far as the distillate goes. As far as transparency of the products, knowing what's in the products for sure, getting them tested more than just once a year. And then also when it comes to THCA, I still haven't seen a shop that's felt comfortable sending their flower out to get tested that they're selling. We've had a couple people buy THCA flower that when they ended up getting run into law enforcement, came back testing as more D9 than is allowed. So it definitely needs to be legalized, needs to be structured a little better. A couple checks and balances for sure. One of the interesting things was that was just kind of an eye opener was, so there's quite a few, my understanding is there's quite a few of the elders in the indigenous community that still don't have the understanding of how cannabis can help people. And again, it's not their fault, just like a lot of our parents, they were raised during that reefer madness. And just in talking to more and more folks that have over the last few months or the last couple of years come around to cannabis, it just really makes me wonder how many people out there still don't really know what that cannabis is truly safe. And I think it my drive back, I was just thinking about this when we were coming back from Baraboo, like we really need to focus on that. We got, I think if we broke it down by age, I would assume that the older crowd is probably the ones that struggle with it the most as far as the understanding of the importance of legalization. And I think we as their children, we need to be the ones to help educate them, help get them to understand what this plant does and why it's so important to us. So there was a couple other points that they talked about as far as like the hempcrete and grain and fiber. There's just so much to this plant. It's not just the THC. And that's where even the day that we find out, things are going to get legalized, we still need to work together to make sure that we utilize this plant the best we can and that it's done fairly. The last thing we want is just a bunch of big money companies coming in and swooping up all the business and, taking away from that cottage industry that Wisconsin's kind of always had. So there were quite a few other things, but we're going to have quite a few of the folks that were at the summit are going to be hopping on the podcast here coming up. So don't want to go too in depth on any of that. As far as possibilities, lobbying days, there's going to be a couple out in DC that hopefully I'll be able to make it out to keep growing the connections, keep fighting a good fight, keep getting people on our side. So just wanted to share that a little bit with you guys. about the summit. Again, thank you to Rob and MJ for sitting down for that interview, and we'll let you guys get back to it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and yeah, our network is growing, and that's what it's all about. So wouldn't be able to do it without all you guys. So let's keep rocking this thing, keep making some noise, and we're gonna do this. So with that, we're gonna head on out. Y'all have a good evening. Bobby Beans out.